Hello peeps and welcome back to Modded Minecraft with Nightdagger Season 5. We're on episode 12. Hey, I actually know this time. And I think I want to get this episode started. Why do I suddenly have a hole in the corner of my base? Nice rendering glitch. Sure, whatever. Alright, I want to get started with another mod today. A mod that has not made an appearance in any of my Let's Play series before, but which has quickly become one of my favorite mods just because how cool it is and how powerful it can be if it's used properly. I'm talking about Rotarycraft. So, first thing, though, is I actually did offline make myself an ME crafting terminal. Basically, it's exactly like this thing, but it's got a built-in crafting table. So, if I need to make anything, I can do it using this instead of this. Now, if we take a look at Rotarycraft, well, actually, let's take a look at the Rotarycraft manual. Because this is actually going to be required for some of your Rotarycraft hijinks, because Rotarycraft doesn't work like most mods. Most mods say, for example, thermal expansion. You have machines. Those machines have a certain power requirement. If you don't meet the power requirement, it'll still run, just slowly. And then you have GregTech, which has a certain power requirement, and if that power requirement isn't met full time, then it stops and it starts over. Well, Rotarycraft doesn't work like either of those. Rotarycraft has a power requirement, but it also has subsections to that power requirement. In Rotarycraft, you use rotational force to drive machines. Power equals torque times speed. So, machines have a minimum power requirement, and they usually have either a minimum torque or a minimum speed requirement. Both of those have to be met for the machine to function. Now, once you've met the minimum, usually increasing the input speed will increase the speed of the machine's function. I mean, after all, adding more power to a machine, once you've reached the minimum amount of torque necessary to break something, adding more torque doesn't usually make it any faster. However, increasing the speed at which that torque is applied, that usually does. So that rule is it's kept pretty faithfully. So in general, what you want to do if you are trying to run a machine is you want to try and meet the minimum torque requirement and then jack the speed up to 19. Alright, so the first thing we are going to need to get started with Rotarycraft is we are going to want to take a look at our book, and there are a couple of machines that we're going to need to get going right away. The first is going to be a blast furnace, and I think that is under processing? No? Where are you? There you are, production machine. Blast furnace, which is stone bricks around a piece of redstone. Blast furnace is the main way to make steel. This mod has its own version of steel. It's called HSLA steel. I can't remember what HSLA stands for, but it does have a meaning. Now, this machine doesn't require any power input, but it does require it to be heated to a certain temperature in order for it to work. Now, I've already placed a blast furnace in the wall down here, and underneath it there is a block of lava, which is keeping it heated to a nice toasty 621 degrees Celsius. That is sufficient for making steel. Let's head back upstairs and get what we're going to need to make some steel. We're going to need some iron. Well, I've got plenty of iron right here. We're going to take 2 stacks to start. Now, I've got a ton of iron outside. I haven't picked it up yet, but we'll get there. We're also going to need some coal coke. Now, coal coke, well, you can use charcoal or you can use coal coke. If we take a look at HSLA steel, not material properties. Where is steel? Let's just take a look at the blast furnace again. Okay. Steel requirements: coal or coke in the left slot, gunpowder in the bottom left, sand in the top left, and iron in the middle. Bonuses and bonus size. You can get more than 1 steel out of each iron, but it requires you to use a certain item. We're going to need some gunpowder. I don't have much of it, but we're going to need some sand. And we are going to need some coal coke. However, immersive engineering and railcraft coal coke does not work in this machine. You have to have Rotarycraft's version of coal coke, which is made just by putting coal in the blast furnace. As it happens, I made up 3 stacks in advance. So if we take a look here, actually maybe this does work. Oh, nope, it'll let me put it in, but it puts it in the wrong slot. Alright, so gunpowder in the bottom slot, sand in the top slot, and you could put coal in here, but if you put coal in, you're not going to get any bonus output. So you want to put coal coke in the middle, and then you just add your iron. But we're going to spread it out across all 9 slots because that way it's going to process 9 pieces per operation, which gives us our maximum chance of a bonus. Now there it processed 9 ingots, it only gave us 9 ingots, so no bonus there. But if we keep watching this for a few minutes, we should eventually get a little bit of bonus. There we go, we got 14 out of that one. That was almost a 50% bonus. Actually, it was a 50% bonus, so that's good. Now, notice it hasn't used any sand or gunpowder. It's going to use a piece of coal coke pretty much every time. It might occasionally use some sand, and it might rarely use some gunpowder, but in general, it's pretty easy on those resources, so you won't need a lot. Let's head upstairs and let's take a look at the first machine that we're going to need to make. We are going to need the work table, which is bricks, HSLA steel, stone slabs, redstone, and a crafting table. So let's make ourselves a crafting table. Do we have enough bricks to make some bricks? Yes, we do. Do we have any stone slabs? Don't know, but we'll make some. And there is our work table. The work table works kind of like a crafting table, except it only works with Rotarycraft machines. And you can apply a redstone signal if you want to have it like auto craft for you. I've never seen a reason why. Alright, now, the main reason why I want to start this mod is because Rotarycraft offers some pretty major ore doubling mechanics. As a matter of fact, the extractor, when it is running at top speed, is an extremely fast way of processing materials, and you can get an average of ore quintupling. That's crazy, but there's something else that I want to do with it. If we take a look at Certus quartz, the Certus quartz ore that we just pull out of the world, we're going to see that we can grind it to get Certus quartz dust with a 90% chance of secondary. We can put it through a grinder to get 3 Certus quartz flakes. We can put it through an extractor to get a 50% chance of duplication per stage, so an average of 5 units per ore. You also get nether quartz flakes. We can pulverize it for 2 Certus quartz dust, crush it for dust, and that's about it. You can also fortune it, and that gets you an average of like 2, maybe 3. But if we take a look at the use of these Certus quartz flakes, burning 1 Certus quartz flake gives you 3 Certus quartz gems. Remember, you get 3 just from grinding it. Each one of these turns into a piece of Certus, which means, using just a grinder, we now get 9 out of each ore. If we use the extractor, we get 15. And considering I'm going to be making myself a rather large and intense AE system at some point, I'm going to need all the quartz I can get. You also get these nether quartz flakes, which smelt into nether quartz. Now, this doesn't smelt into multiple nether quartz, but it's still something. But first things first, we have to have a grinder. So, if we take a look at the grinder, it's going to take an HSLA steel gear, 3 base panels, 2 saws, 2 HSLA steel, and this has to be made in a work table. The gears are just 5 HSLA. Not too hard. Let's go ahead and toss our HSLA steel in there, and we'll toss the iron and everything away too. We're not going to need it at the moment. Let's come down here and gather our HSLA steel that we've produced. Almost 2 stacks of it. back upstairs, and back into here. Alright, the grinder. We take a look here. It's going to require 2 saws. Each saw is HSLA steel on the outside of a gear. So we need 2 of these. We'll need this last gear. We're going to need 3 base panels. Base panels are just 3 steel put together. So there's our base panels. We're going to need 2 HSLA steel. And that should be everything we need for the grinder. Look this recipe up. Pull it out, and we have our grinder, which is an awesome piece of machinery. We're going to come down here, we're going to pop it down right here. You can see there's a green dot lit up. That's where the power has to be input. But if we take a look at the grinder and we click this little thing on the side, notice how it says power, speed, torque? Well, this thing has a power requirement of 4 kilowatts, 4,096 watts. It also has a required torque of 128 nanometers. It doesn't have a required speed, just a required torque. Well, we need an engine capable of producing that, right? Let's take a look at our Rotarycraft handbook. And we'll take a look at the section on engines. Well, we can come down here and we can check and we can see that the steam engine will produce 32 nanometers of torque at 512 rad. It produces 16 kilowatts. That's more than the minimum requirement that we need to run this machine. But in order to use this, we would have to use a gearbox to change the power and speed. Using gearboxes, you can change the torque and the speed of a machine by a certain ratio. A 2x gearbox will cause the machine to cause it to double the power and have the speed, or vice versa. You can have the power and double the speed. So a 2x gearbox on this would make this 64 nanometers at 256 rads. A 4x would make it 128 nanometers at 128 rad, which will run this machine, but it runs it slow. We don't want slow. We want fast. So let's take a look at the next step up, gasoline engine. Now this one produces 65 kilowatts of power. It provides 128 nanometers of torque at 512 rads, so it's going to be running 4 times as fast as that steam engine. This, I think, is the way we want to go. However, gasoline engines run on ethanol. We have to make ethanol. Well, how can you make ethanol? Ethanol crystals are made by smelting sludge. Okay, how do you get sludge? You have to use a machine called a fermenter with yeast and some sort of input. You can use vines, you can use leaves, you can use a whole bunch of stuff. But you have to have yeast, which is also made in the fermenter using sugar and dirt. Well, how do we make the fermenter? Pretty easy. We can use tin, base panels, and an impeller. The impeller is gear surrounded by either steel or tin. So, not too bad. We'll head upstairs. We'll make ourselves, we're going to pull up the recipe for the fermenter. We're going to make ourselves some more of these gears. We're going to make ourselves an impeller. We're going to use tin because we don't want to waste any steel if we can avoid it. We're going to need 4 more of these base panels. So we'll just pull out a couple of them. And we're going to need just a couple ingots of tin. Combine these. Okay. We'll do it this way then. That gets us the fermenter. And let's take him downstairs and pop him down. We're going to put him kind of over towards the corner here. And, well, power, speed, torque. Again, this machine requires input power. It takes a constant source of water, first of all, and it also requires a speed of 32 rad. Well, let's take a look at our engines and see what can provide that power. If we take a look, even the DC electric engine is capable of running this machine because it outputs 256 rad at 1 kilowatt. Well, this machine's required input power is 1 kilowatt. So a DC electric engine will run this machine. Let's go make ourselves a DC electric engine. We're also going to need a fluid transfer node or some other way of making water. I'm just going to make a fluid transfer node. Block of redstone, fluid transfer node. We're going to need a world interaction upgrade, so we need iron pickaxe to get that. Good. Alright, we're going to need a bucket. I'm just going to craft a couple of buckets. There we go. Alright, and we're going to need the DC electric engine. The DC electric engine is HSLA steel, base panels as shaft units, and some redstone. Shaft unit is just 3 steel put on a diagonal. So there's that. We're going to need 2 base panels, which I happen to have. We need some redstone and some steel. There's our redstone, there's our steel. Sleep through the night so we don't get ambushed when we go out. We'll go get a couple of buckets of water to make ourselves an infinite water source. While I'm out here, we're going to look around, see if we've got any visitors. We don't. And we're going to take a look in here. Oh yeah, I've been a little bit busy. 64 blocks of iron in there, and then some change besides. Yeah. I've also been growing some sugar cane, which is a good thing because we're going to need it right now. So we're going to go through here and we're going to harvest all of this wonderful sugar cane. I'm still wearing my ring of magnetism, so I don't have to worry about picking it up. It'll just suck right into my inventory. We're going to head back in here, and we're going to get this thing ready to roll. So, we are going to need to make our DC electric engine. Got it? The DC electric engine runs on a constant redstone signal. So, we just need a lever. We're also going to need a screwdriver from Rotarycraft, because the screwdriver from Rotarycraft is what you need in order to manipulate machines. It is your wrench from this mod, essentially. So we're going to go downstairs. Sorry about that, Becca called for me. Alright, put the engine down. Red is output, green is input. So by putting the engine down there, the shaft is pointing into the fermenter, and this thing is ready to get power. However, it doesn't have any water. And the engine doesn't have a redstone signal. So let's fix these problems. We'll carve down into here. We'll make ourselves an infinite water source. Put down the transfer node, break out that block, give that a world interaction upgrade. It's going to pump water into the fermenter, and now we're good, right? Let's go ahead and pop that down. And this thing is now ready to run. Put a lever up here, flip that, and oh my god, this thing is annoying. That's right, these engines make noise. Not only that, some of them make a rather significant amount of it. There's a couple of different ways to combat this problem. We're going to go with the easiest way at the moment, which is just to use wool. If you put wool around an engine, it helps to muffle the sound. So we're going to put wool on both sides, and on top. We can still put the lever up here. When we flip that, that's much nicer. Alright, so we are ready to make ourselves some yeast. We need sugar. We need dirt in order for it to act upon. Let's grab a stack of that. Sugar. And dirt. And hey, we made ourselves 44 yeast. Look at how fast it burned up that yeast though. Or burned up the sugar. Holy crap. Yeah. You're going to need serious amounts of sugar to produce serious amounts of ethanol. Grab ourselves some noms. Now, we need something for the yeast to act upon to actually make the ethanol. This is where we're going to need our shears. We'll come out here. And, well, it just so happens we've got some rubber tree leaves here. Let's break these rubber tree leaves, gather them all up. Now, different leaves give different returns. I'm going to tell you right now, rubber tree leaves are not the optimal leaf for this process. I will get into the optimal leaf for this process at some point during this series, but for right now, I'm going to leave it for you guys to try and figure out. But we got ourselves a little over a stack. Let's add some rubber leaves and some yeast. That's going to get us ethanol, or it's going to get us some sludge, and lots of it. We've already burned up all of our yeast. We got about 2 3/4 stacks of sludge. Sludge, when cooked in an oven, gives you ethanol. There we go. And you, and why not you? We'll put more in there than we know we need, just to get it going. Alright, now we need that gasoline engine. Gasoline engine. Gold, impeller, shaft unit, cylinders, ignition unit, and 2x gear units. Now we're getting into some serious shit. Alright, let's start off with the cylinders. Cylinders are easy enough. 8 steel gives you 2 cylinders. We need 2, so that gets us everything we need. Right? Shaft unit, we already made a couple. Impeller, we've made that before, so let's just make one. Base panels, again, nothing we haven't seen before. The ignition unit is just steel, redstone, and you can use either electrum or gold. We're just going to use, I guess we're not going to use gold because I don't have any in the system. We're going to use electrum. Gold, we're going to have to go get a piece of it. Shaft unit, well, we've already got some shaft units in here. Or, no, I've got some in my inventory. But we're actually going to need a few more. Because if you take a look at the gear, the 2x gear unit is going to require 2 gears and 2 shafts. So we're going to need to make one more set of shafts. And then we can make our gear unit. Oh, nope. Need another gear. See why I wanted the crafting thing before I started doing any of this stuff? Okay, there's our gear unit. We're going to need a bar of gold, which we've got out here. We're going to need to flip that on so our iron can finish pumping out. Then over to the work table we go to produce our first gasoline engine. Alright. Now, there's a problem with the gasoline engine though. It doesn't have an on-off switch like the DC engine does. You put fuel in this thing, it'll run until it burns the fuel out. We don't want that. We want a way to control this thing. You control this thing using a device called an engine control unit. The engine control unit is steel, electrum, redstone, you can use gold instead of electrum, and circuit boards. The circuit boards, HSLA steel, gold, and in the center you need a piece of copper, an ender pearl, or a piece of silicon. Silicon requires a friction heater heated up to 800 degrees Celsius, which we don't have yet, so we're not going to do that. We're going to use just the copper recipe for now, because we've got all the supplies we need for that. We're going to pull some steel. We're going to pull a piece of electrum. We'll make ourselves the engine control unit. And, okay, circuit board, electrum, redstone, steel, ECU. Alright, let's go hook this gasoline engine up to that grinder and see what kind of trouble we can get into. First things first, bore a hole in the floor, put the ECU down. We're going to bore a hole in the floor there. For the moment, this is how we're going to do it. We'll eventually set this up nicer later. We're going to put the gasoline engine on there. Remember, red indicates a power output, green indicates a power input. So, this thing is now connected to the grinder. The grinder is ready to operate at this point. All we have to do is put fuel in the engine and make sure it's turned on, which it is by default. Applying the redstone signal shuts an engine off. It doesn't turn it on. We're going to need a lever. Are you kidding me? I clicked on the wrong one. There we go, lever. By the way, I'm using NEI synchronized auto mode for the search box because that is what lets me type this in here and it pulls up the corresponding recipes in NEI. It makes crafting in this thing so much easier. That's something I did not do last season because the functionality wasn't working properly for me. So, lever on the ECU. Gasoline engine. Doesn't require any coolant or anything, it just takes fuel. That fuel is ethanol. Let's come up here, grab a handful of ethanol crystals, and we're going to grab the Certus quartz ore that I got earlier. Downstairs, we're going to put the Certus quartz ore in here. We're going to put the ethanol in here. We're going to flip that lever first to shut this off. We're going to put the ethanol in the gasoline engine. It turns into a liquid fuel. As of right now, we have enough fuel to operate this gasoline engine in here for 32 minutes. Each ethanol crystal gives about 1 minute of power. So, we flip this on. Gasoline engine starts running, making a lot of noise. Grinder starts working, processing Certus quartz. And we have Certus quartz flakes, which is amazing. We're just going to leave this run for a few seconds while we come up here and we get the next thing that we're going to need ready. First of all, let's go ahead and toss some Certus quartz flakes in here. We're going to break this down into fuel pellets so we're not wasting fuel. If we toss the Certus quartz flakes in there, you're going to see each Certus quartz flake is going to burn up into 3 Certus quartz gems. And these Certus quartz gems, if you use them in your inventory, just breaks down into regular Certus quartz crystals. So we are now, if we collect the Certus quartz ore using our Silk Touch hammer, we are now getting 9 Certus quartz out of each one of those ores. That's a pretty significant improvement over 2 or 3. And we're going to need it. But there's something else we're going to need, and that is lubricant, because you have to have lubricant to make some of the higher end machines run, and some of them take a lot. Lubricant is gained from canola seeds. So we're going to take these canola seeds, we're going to take ourselves a fluid duct. We can just use a temperate fluid duct for this, it doesn't have to be anything awesome. We're going to take ourselves a servo. Again, we're dealing with small amounts here, it doesn't have to be anything great. We're going to need ourselves a tank. Now I'm just going to get us another one of these cheap tanks, because 8, and then we're going to upgrade it using a little bit of Invar, so now it'll hold 32 buckets. That is plenty for now. Eventually, we'll upgrade this. On the side of this thing, we're going to put this temperate fluid duct. We're going to put the servo on. I'm going to set the servo into redstone, not required. And we're going to put the hardened portable tank on top. In here, we're going to toss our canola seeds. We're going to give this thing power again. It's going to start grinding the canola seeds. And the canola seeds are going to give us canola seed husks, and it's also going to give us a small, very small amount of lubricant for each one. So you have to grind a lot of these canola seeds to get any reasonable amount of this lubricant. It looks like we're getting about 69, maybe 70. Actually, that one gave us a little bit more. That one gave us about 90. But yeah, we're not getting much out of these canola seeds, so we're going to have to work pretty hard at it. Excuse me for just a second. Sorry about that. I know my headset makes a horrifying click when I mute it, so I will see if I can remember where those clicks are and see if I can mute them in post. But if I miss one, I'm sorry. Alright, now, that's all well and good as long as we have canola seeds. Well, what happens when we run out? We don't want to run out. So, we're going to want to make ourselves a canola seed field. We're going to need lots of it. Let's take a look at Agricraft. Agricraft has something called a wooden channel valve, which allows you to change the direction that your irrigation stuff goes. Now, we're not really going to need that because we don't really need to shut it off. We just want to route it. So, if we get our irrigation channels, we're probably going to want a few more of them. Yeah, 13, is that going to be enough? Probably not. We'll go ahead and make a few more. That should be plenty. And we're going to want a sprinkler. We can make that easy enough. We're going to go ahead and make ourselves another bucket. No, I don't want shears. Yeah, whatever. We need to break some of this iron down. Why are you not casting? What is your issue? You've got molten iron in there. Why are you not doing anything with it? Don't know, don't care, I'll figure it out off camera. Okay, bucket. We're going to go get a couple of buckets. We're going to need our mattock. And we'll need a piece of cobblestone to repair him. He's starting to get low. Good enough. One, 2 buckets. Probably don't need the 2, but Alright, now off to this side of the water tank, we're going to put another irrigation channel. Not quite as far as I want it. 6, 7. On the bottom of that, we'll put our sprinkler. There we go. We have more sprinklage. And then directly under the sprinkler, we're going to put a water source. We're going to use the medic. No. Go 4 in each direction. And then we're just going to round this out. And I broke the mattock already. I really need to upgrade this thing. This stone is beginning to annoy me. It just doesn't have the oomph to do anything that I need it to do. Alright, well we got that. We're going to need to go get our watering can. Because canola seeds, if I remember right, can only be planted on hydrated soil. Which means we'll need the watering can, and we're going to need some canola seeds. We got 40. We're going to come over here. We're going to give this field a little shot of water just to hydrate the dirt. There we go. We're well hydrated, and we're going to plant the canola seeds. Now, in previous versions there has been a bug where sometimes canola seeds wouldn't plant properly. You just have to plant another crop, and then once that crop is planted, you break it out and real quick plant the canola seeds. I haven't had that problem in this version, but if for some reason you can't plant a canola seed, plant a regular seed there, break it real quick, and then plant the canola seed. It should work. We're going to go ahead and water this just to get our canola seeds to finish growing, so that you guys can see the use of a canola seed. When a canola seed is showing a nice bright yellow top like that, it's done. Break it to get 3 canola seeds or so. So the only output from canola is canola seeds. But you get a pretty good yield. And it grows pretty fast. Now, unfortunately, canola is one of those plants that cannot be grown through Rotarycraft. I'm quite sure that there are config settings that I could use to make it grow using Rotarycraft, but I'm not sure how Reika would like that, because Reika has very, very finely tuned his mod so that everything is exactly how he wants it, and using something that increases the output of one of his plants, I don't think he would appreciate that, so I didn't do it. If you guys want to do it in your configs, that's up to you, but I'm not going to distribute it that way, because part of the terms for distributing Rotarycraft is that you leave all the config settings intact and you don't make it any easier or harder, because, well, it's exactly how he wants it. So that's why I didn't make canola plants growable through Rotarycraft. I'm pretty sure you can if you want to, by all means, but it's not going to come that way by default in the pack. Please don't ask. Anyway, We've got a decent amount of canola grown now. We're going to come through here, we're going to break up all of the canola that we've grown. That's going to give us a ton of canola seeds, which we're going to come through here and replant. And we've even got a few extra. By a few, I mean a couple of stacks. So, yeah, we're making some pretty serious gains on canola already. Let's head downstairs. But first, we're going to stop here. We're going to get ourselves... I don't want an item duct. I want an item transfer node. Okay, transfer node items. I'm quite sure that's Becca asking me again to get her something. We're going to need a chest. I'm going to take an iron chest. We're going to need a hopper. I'm actually just going to make 4 chests. And we're going to make ourselves a hopper. We'll head downstairs. We take a look at the grinder. We still got plenty of seeds in there. Hopper on the top. Put canola seeds in there. That's going to automatically pull canola seeds into the grinder for us. Transfer node on the side is going to automatically pull the husks out and put them into this chest for us. So now we've got some basic automation on this. We'll have to feed it canola seeds every once in a while. Every once in a while we'll have to feed the engine. But we've got a pretty decent little setup to get us some lubricant. We've got about 4 buckets produced so far. So that is a decent start. I think this is about where we're going to call this for right now. I'm going to turn this DC engine off because it's not doing anything. Off camera, I'm going to gather some leaves. I'm going to farm up some canola. We're going to get a decent amount of lubricant built up. And if I find any more Certus quartz, I'm going to grind it down, of course. And I think next episode, when we come back, we will do a little bit more with Rotarycraft. I don't think we're ready to go into endgame Rotarycraft yet, or even mid-game, but we might start producing a couple of things here and there. I do want to get some better, more powerful engines going, for sure. So we might need to start producing a certain resource that's going to allow us to use more powerful engines. Well, more powerful engines don't run off straight gasoline, folks. They run off jet fuel. So we're gonna have to start producing some of that. I don't know if we'll get to it next episode. We might get sidetracked again, but we got a pretty decent little setup so far. So this has been Nightdagger with episode 12 of Mod of Minecraft Season 5. Hope you guys are enjoying the series and looking forward to where it goes. I know I am. I'll catch you later, peeps.